I'd like to start by just making a couple of very short observations. It was a delight to me to find some history creeping into our discussions today. I was particularly delighted when John mentioned Don Cressy's famous work, Theft of a Nation, published back in 1969. And of course, Don's work wasn't welcomed then, nearly quite as much as it is now. And I just also wanted to remind, I'm going to recommend a book, might as well as a professor, but one that I've really enjoyed rereading again is Al McCoy's Politics of Heroin, published back in 1972, which in a sense we're almost revisiting again. And I think it's important for us to remember that although it looks bad now, it's been bad before and it might be bad again, and what we really do need is a steady look at our problem, because it's going to be around for a while. I was mighty impressed, I must say, yesterday with what I thought I was hearing was some distinguished Mandarin scholars talking about the need not to have a war against drugs or organised crime, but a steady fight using both soft and hard power. And I think that's a very, very, I think that's the, in a sense, the clue here as to how we need to go about our business. And I want to congratulate all of the speakers for making that so clear, because we do represent the elites here in the sense that we know the topic, we know the ground, we know the topography, if you like, and we're going to have a big role to play in influencing public opinion about what to do. And what I worry about, of course, one of the issues that really does trouble me is although transnational organised crime is a major threat to the world, many parts of the world, I don't deny that, it's not an existential threat here in Australia. It may come perhaps one day that it will. But while we have that luxury, I think we really do have time to take stock and to tackle some of the issues that may undermine our ability to combat it. One of the points that was raised today, and I want to raise it again, is this deep problem that we have, that we're all in a sense complicit. We're all involved in organised crime in some way, often very intangibly. I like to give the example of my occasional visits to Hong Kong markets, buying fake Louis Vuitton bags for my wife. I know that contributes in a strange way, and it's the point that Ken was making also today about the shift in values and how important it is that we look at the sorts of values we are teaching our kids. And I'm very conscious of this as a scholar of Chinese triads, how much that whole triad business has been romanticised and exploited. So this complicity really is something that we have to address at the political level. I mean, it's all very good us running around being indignant about these sorts of things, but the bottom line is that we've got to do something about crime-proofing our own policies and practices. I also wanted to touch very, very briefly on the problem of doing really decent, proper research in this field. It's a really difficult area to work in, and I reach out to you as best as I can as a scholar and hope that we can engage in some meaningful long-term research. Let me now quickly turn to the five issues, I guess, that I think we should be looking at very, very carefully over the next few years as part of our role, I guess, not to be too caught up in what I would call security trumping freedom. We're here to fight, really, and stand and protect our communities. And one of those great virtues, of course, of our communities is freedom. So I do think that we can look at the organised crime problem probably as something of a bit of a distraction. And a very good example of that is the prison system. I think it was Andy Hughes that mentioned it today. You know, if we don't build proper prison systems, if we don't de-radicalise, these people come out of jails and they come out with crackerjack CVs that makes their employment, their reputations and so on, all that much more menacing. I think the other problem too, we've got to really be careful that our missions, if you like, our task, doesn't creep into other parts of our community life. I think it's very important that we know who's really in charge. And I think it's very important that we know who it is that, or indeed what it is that we really do want to try to prevent or stop, and who actually decides whether it's child protection or whether it's drugs or whether it's some other matter that causes public concern. And finally, I think we should be, because some of the really dramatic events that do take place, it's worth remembering that they are fundamentally, at least in our society, relatively rare events, and that we ought to be on our guard not to sacrifice some of our hard-earned values for that very purpose. Thank you.